Black Gemara, we are up to the Yud Zayin Amud Aleph, the Mishnah. So we're learning the Chumras of Nedarim over Shavuos and the Chumras of Shavuos over Nedarim. So the Mishnah says, Yesh Neder B'toich Neder. There is a Neder inside another Neder. The Mishnah will explain in a minute. You can make one Neder and then make another Neder on top of that. But the ein shvua b'toich shvua. You cannot make one shvua on top of another shvua. Ketzad. What do you mean? Omar, he says, Hareini nazir imoich. If I eat this bread, I will be a nazir. And then he says again, Hareini nazir imoich. If I eat this bread, I'll be a nazir. So he made two nedarim about the same piece of bread. V'achal, he ate the bread. Chayiv v'kolach v'achas. You chayiv not twice, a double naziris. 30 days carbon, 30 days another carbon. Now. Okay, he's saying Shavua. Contrast that with the Shavua. He says, Shala'echel, I won't eat this bread. Shavua, Shala'echel, I won't eat this bread. And then Achli ate it. How many kabbanas does it bring we did by mistake? Or how much mouth does he get? And the Chayiv Alachas, you only Chayiv for one. There's nowhere for the second Shavua to be Chal. Mashenke by Naziris, I can do two lots of 30 days. Big Machlek is a Shainim. What about an ordinary neder? I say, this piece of bread is also to me. And then I say, this piece of bread is also to me. And then you ate it. Are you able to yachal devar twice or not? Most Yisraelim hold no, and that's why the Mishnah gives you an example of Nazir, because Nazir is a certain fixed time, 30 days, so you can start now and then do it again. By saying bread is also to me, it's not fixed time. Bread is also to me, bread is also to me. So where's the second Issa going to be Chal? The Rambam, however, holds that you could even have a neder on top of another neder, and we'll see a little bit about it. You get twice punched.
Besides for the Naziris, because the Nazir has a standard format, a 30-day format. Apart from that, where do you see Neder b'toich Neder?
That's the only example we have.
That's the only thing, right?
Now there is a machlekes Rishonim if Naziris is compared to Shavuot to Neder, and from this because what is Naziris? Remember we had all in the beginning to the Rosh, around all that. The Mishnah starts off here clearly, Yesh Neder b'toich Neder, and the example it gives is Naziris. So it seems from here that Nazir is like a Neder. Now Neder, you're answering the Chayfetz. What's the Chayfetz you're answering over here?
By Naziris.
By Naziris. So like the hair, what are you answering? So it must be that the Isser is on me, I'm not allowed to cut my hair. The Isser is, you're putting an Isser on the Chayfetz itself. Others say that the idea of a Nazir is that the body becomes holy. You're making your body holy. So therefore, that's similar to Neder, but it's not exactly the same thing as Neder. Others say it's like a Shua. I will behave like a Nazir, and because this thing of the wine is also our laws of the Torah placed. You become a Nazir. These are the Torah. These are the Torah. You can't drink wine. You can't go here. You can't go there.
I am excising myself from various known of the world, the Yayin, or is it I'm being Mila? I'm elevating to a higher level. Am I? In other words, is the subject of my action me that I will come to a higher level, or is it that I'm like a porush? I'm locking myself out from Olam Hazeh to an extent. Which
maybe somewhere along those lines you can say we had before. The Shulchan Tzaddik said he only likes people do some Shemaim. Okay, let's continue the Gemara. Says the Gemara, now we have an interesting machlek, and Shmuel. Omar Rabbi Huna said, when we say by Naziris, you can say if I eat this bread, I'll become a Nazir, you become a Nazir. You have to leave a little bit of room for the second Naziris to be Chal, and once it's Chal a little bit, I'll take it all on. So what do you mean? Ela de Omar, he said, I'll be a Nazir today. Now, even though he said Hayayim means 30 days. We said Yiyah is Gematria 30, so a Stam Naziris is 30 days, unless you specify otherwise. She said, you're a Nazir for 30 days. And then you say, Harei Nazir Machar. So the second Naziris starts tomorrow. So 29 days of the second Naziris overlaps with the first Naziris, but the 30th day of the second Naziris is on its own. And since there's room or the space for the second Naziris to be Chal, even though it's only a little bit, once it's Taifus, a little bit, it becomes a new 30 days. So this is, no, she bring your commands after like 2 Naziris now. So you complete your first Naziris, and then you do all your kabbanas and you start the day after. What, 30 days? 30 days. Here goes.
Oh, but it's on 31 days.
Yeah. Just 30 for right afterwards. You take care of all your first minyanim, and we'll see later. By the way, your haircut you can do whenever you want, even later. It's not even market we had before, and then you start. The following day when your zidus is over. The following day you start your second zidus, and even if you don't, we'll talk about later. But you must have to know. We'll learn whether you have to take haircut 30 days.
Okay, I thought it was
No. Yeah, but once you gave an asinus makom to the start, it'll only begin after you complete the 3 days. Yeah. Immediately come a taisa. You say the chaylan is on the zidus. Once since you have space for one day in the zidus, so therefore you start a new cycle in the zidus. Abel Omar hareni nozer hayim hareni nozer hayim. We said twice the same neder. I'll be nozer today. I'll be nozer today. So there's no space for the second zidus to be chal because they complete their cycle at the same time. And you call it on the zidus. You cannot. Why is it different than anything else? Than a shvu and all that? It can't be. However, Shmuel says, "Afilu Omar Hareni Nozer Hayim Chol Nezidus Aleh." Shmuel says, even if you say Hareni Nozer Hayim twice, it's still Chal. Why? Because he learned from a pasuk. So he learns from a pasuk. As we're going to see, the Gemara Rav Huna approaches it with seichel. Al pi seichel, you have to have somewhere for the Nozer. The second is be Chal. Otherwise, where is it? It's suspended in the cloud. Mashen Gen Shmuel says, we learn from the pasuk Nozer Lehazir that you can make a Nezidus on another Nezidus. In this kind of way. Says the Gemara, let's ask
60 days like that, or it's just
you still have two groups of the zidus, but you said hayim twice. And now we're going to ask a number of questions. Says the Gemara,
the guy started having his whole life in
but the Gemara, Rav Huna, if so, according to Rav Huna, within the zidus itself, sometimes the second zidus is chal, sometimes it isn't. You said hayim, it's not chal. You said hayim u'machar, it is chal. So why does the Mishnah draw a contrast between the zidus and shvua? Make a contrast within the zidus itself. Well, Rav Huna adatan ein shvua b'tech shvua. Listni yesh neder b'tech neder, and there's also a case of ein neder b'tech neder. Hareini knows hayim, hareini knows l'machar. Yesh neder b'tech neder. Hareini knows hayim, hareini knows hayim. Ein neder b'tech neder. So said that. Kasha. That's a good question, but it's not going to deter Rav Huna because it's a question why Taka Mishnah doesn't do that. But it's not enough grounds to say, okay, Rav Huna, you're wrong. For whatever reason, the Mishnah decided to draw contrasts. Why? Because the other Mishnahs are drawing contrasts in the Nedarim and Shvuos. So the Mishnah is continuing that same pattern, even though he could have made a chilik within the zidus itself. You can't really ask a strong question. So anyway, right, Tanan, we learned in our Mishnah, Yesh Neder B'Tech, the Mishnah prefaces by saying, Yesh Neder B'Tech Neder, but the Ein Shvua Tech Shvua, which means there have to be identical cases. So what would the identical case of Shvua Tech Shvua be if you learn like Rav Huna Neder B'Tech Neder? The way Rav Shmuel is very simple. Neder is exactly the same Neder twice. You replicated your Neder. Shvua the same thing. You made the same Shvua twice. I won't eat this bread. I won't eat this bread. Okay. By Shvua it's not Chal, and by Nazir it is Chal. Okay, Shmuel. But according to Rav Huna, if you said, I'll be another today, I'll be another tomorrow. So what's the contrast with Shua? What did you say? If he said, I won't eat bread today, and then he said, I won't eat bread tomorrow, then why taka won't it be chal? It's two separate Shuas, 2 separate days. So the problem is that they overlap, and that's a chiddush that's still, 1 day is enough out of the 30. So how is Rav Huna going to learn the contrast between the zidus and his interpretation of the zidus and Shua? So ask me what I say. Is there this preface? Hey, what are you talking about? So the kavase. What would the contrast be? Gabi Shua. For example, he said instead of time, Yomar gives 2 different things. I won't eat fig, and then the Chazal Amar Shavua Shlo Eichel I won't eat grapes. It's 2 different Shuas. What's the problem? Same like Nazir. Today and tomorrow. 2 different Naziris. Why taka won't it work? So what would be an example with Shua? No, we're trying to say. No, according to Rav Huna, you're basically your 2 Nedarim are not. But so the different times, of course, they'll be chal. And you tell me by Shua it's not chal. So I'm trying to find an example where Shua is similar to the kind of the 2 Nedarim you made. And so given I could have said I'm making that when he bread today and I'm making that when he bread tomorrow. But the same idea. It's 2 disparate shuas. What do you mean shua not chal shua? Keep going. So what would be l'chayre? The same shua twice. Shaloi oichel te'enim, v'chazav amr shaloi oichel te'enim. Right? In the second shua nachal. So now go back to Nazidas. What would be the similar netaban? The kavase gabin is hekadami. The Amr said hareini noza yem, hareini noza yem. Same true. And yet 20 years never neder. It's exactly like Shmuel learned. Kasher Ravuna. How would Ravuna learn? Amr Ravuna will tell you. Ravuna will tell you like this. Masnisin the Omar hareini noza yenaz mocher. When you say noza l'mocher, part of your shvua, part of your neder is redundant, and part of your neder is on its own, because you have 30 days in Nazidus. 29 of the second lot of 30 days is covered by the first neder you made, and you have 1 day that's on its own. So we're going to do this, and this similar thing by shvua, where you make a shvua, and then you make another shvua which incorporates the first shvua, and that second shvua is not called. Where do you find that? The Kavasi Gabashin, always an example by Shua is the Amari said Shla Oichel Te'enim, I won't eat figs. And then the Chazav Amashua Shla Oichel Te'enim Anach. So now the second Shua adds something that the first Shua didn't, and has something that
So with that we suffer, it has a halal.
it's just like Nazir. That's what you would think. And the Mishnah says no. By Nazir, the second Azidus has a little bit of its own, has some space to be chayla. So therefore, the second is chaling ganzen. But in this case here by Shvua, if your second Shvua repeats the first Shvua, just because you added something, it's not a Shvua at all. Not the pshat is the Shvua only remains on grapes. You have no Shvua at all. The Lechayl is on Chal at all. And that's the contrast. Says the Gemara, Rabba said, Fesher is Chal. Rabba says, Shvua shlo oichel te'enim. If you made a Shvua, you won't eat figs. And then the Chazav Amma Shvua shlo oichel te'enim, and won't eat figs and grapes. But Achal te'enim, and you ate figs. The Hebrew carbon. So you move the first, you got rid of the first shvua, right? You brought a carbon. And then the Chazav Achal only 8 grapes. Since your first shvua was gone, you did an Aveda, you brought a carbon, it's over now. Now you made a second shvua. What was the second shvua? I won't eat figs together with grapes. But if you only ate the grapes, so you didn't carry out your full second shvua. In other words, what's your rabbi saying? That the entire second shvua is chal. And if he didn't breach it completely, it's only a chatzashir. Then we come to chatzashir. So clearly, we see from here that a taka would be chal. If the Mishnah is talking about a case like Rav Huna, that by neder, from a nazidus, where the second nazidus has 1 day to be chal, and there it is chal. Contrast that with shvua, that if you said the first day I won't eat figs, and then you said I won't eat figs and grapes, and therefore you tell me there's not chal. Rabbi Kula says it is chal. The second shvua is chal. Alma heichad alma shvua shaloi eichel te'enim. You made a shvua, you won't eat figs. And then because of Amma shvua, then he made a second shvua, I won't eat figs and grapes. So part of the shvua was already incorporated in the first shvua. It's clear that it is chal. Kasha Rabuna. Rabuna looks like Rabba. What kind of kasha? Rabuna is weird Rabba. Especially Rabba was his student. Rabuna doesn't have to agree with his Rebbe, with Rabba. Says further, Meisvei, I'll ask you a question. Me shenoza. This is Gemara Shavuos. Me shenoza stein zidus. If a person said, "I'll be noza twice," Mana said, "What do? Do you just count 60 days in a row?" No. Mana said, "First, you count the first one. He counted the first one. The hifri carbon, and he separated carbon. The nishal, and then what happens? What do you call it? Monas is trying to be heapish carbon. So he counted the first one, and he's about to bring a carbon. And then Venishala, he decided to go to a Rav and be matter neder for the first nazir, which he just completed, and he's about to bring kabbanis. He didn't bring his kabbanis in. He's about to bring his kabbanis. And he went along and said, "Oh, I made a mistake. I didn't realize. He found some pesach or charot, whatever it is." And Venishala also leishni b'rishayim. The din is that the second is jumps in, kicks in, and what do you call it? Since you completed your nazir, what happened? Look at this. You said it'll be another once. You said it'll be a second time, and then you completed 30 days in the nazir. Now you're ready to bring kabbanis. You even set aside a carbon. You didn't bring it yet, and then you went to the Rav and said, "This is I made the first one. I was a mistake." So what do we say? We don't say, okay, start counting now your second Azidus. We'll say that the second Azidus, you already just completed. So what you did for the last 30 days was your second Azidus, because no, it was in the it was always there. That second Azidus was a rider, was always there, that neder was there, and therefore you fulfilled it. Now, the Gemara asks, let's understand what happened. Now you're telling me clearly also like shnia but a shayna. The problem is if you don't like Rav Huna, when does the shnia chal? Only if you said l'machar, which means you finished 30 days, and now we're saying you're Yotzi Yishnei. No, you're not. You still have to do the 31st day. According to Shmuel, both 30 days are concurrent, so no problem. You took away the first 30 days, second one's there, and you finish. And it finishes at the same time. But according to Rav Huna, the second Zidus starts the second day and completes a day later. So how are you Yotzi with the 30 days you kept? What are we talking about? How can you tell me that this, you Yaitzi, your second neder? You still have to keep observe one day. Elipshit, it must be talking about. Must be said twice. It's Yuter Ravuna, Akash Ravuna. Says he want to know. Who said also means that the 30 days are over? Also means that 29 of those days will use as credit for your second nezer and do one more day, and that's it. Doesn't say that also that you finished. Maybe you have to do one more day. So Rabbi has Pasha. You said I'll be another today, I'll be another tomorrow. My also what does it mean when it says here also levad mahu yom yisayim? Also means plus that one additional day.
Just say that once he says it in that way, it's called that you need to do a second one.
It's like inami or who told you that he said and then another separate? Maybe it means he's like I am going to be 2 cycles of Mesiris. And therefore, yeah, then when it's mightier, then if you clearly said that, then they're both, they're both there, both chal stuff now, but you can't do both at the same time. So you do one now for 30 days, then the next one. If you were shoyal on the first one, so the second one kicks in from now, because it's not talking about when does Abuna say Hareni Nozayin Namach. If you break it up into 2 separate Nedarim, then once one is chal, where does the second one? There's no space for the second one to be typed. Yeah, be typed. So they have no bereda. So you have to say hayem l'mach. But if you have said 2 citizens, no problem. Neither of them comes before the other one. They forget. Okay. Another question. It says Nazir lahazir. It says in the pasuk, right? Linda neder Nazir lahazir. The can from here you learn out. We had to about before. You learn out Shan Nazidis chol al Nazidis. That Nazidis is chal al Nazidis. I would have thought it doesn't. And why would you think it doesn't? Dinu makes sense. Ma shvua chamura mada shvua, which is so strict. And the Gemara will explain later why shvua is so strict. Stricter than a ned. Ein shvua chal al shvua. You can't have one shvua on top of another shvua. Yet it's in the Zida's color. The Zida's, which does not have the same weight as a shvua, it's much easier. Is like Goshkein. Surely that you should not be able to have one Zida top another. If it says Nazir lihazir, that double, that what calls it? Repetition is to teach you that you can be a Nazir and another Nazir the same. They can. Shanazir is chal Nazir. That's what we learned before the Gemara. Now let's understand. Hechidami, what's the case? No, you would have thought it doesn't work, and we need a pasuk. What's the case here? Because Yurav Huna l'cheda, what you're saying is logic. You don't need a pasuk for that. What you're telling me is that because the 30th day of the second Azidus is not overlapping the first Azidus, and once it's chal one day, then you have to do 30 days. That's a svara. So what I need a pasuk for? I need a pasuk for that. It's a pasuk svara. Why shouldn't it be chal? I gave it room to be chal because the second Azidus has a day on its own. Elalav must be talking about in a case where we would have thought Apiseichel, it wouldn't be effective. And yet it says in the Braisa from the pasuk, "Come to teach you." So it's a kasha navuni. No, we're talking about you're going to kibul all of stein zidvazachas. Remember we just said before, Rabuna's made if you kabel chatchila two nazidus in tandem, then tataka they would both be chal, and that's what we're asking. There's no svara there because the apisvara you still ask a question. How can they both be chal? They're both happy at the same time. And for that, we need a pasuk. So now, and what's the chumrah? Okay, so why would you think that the madach shvua, which is so chumrah, you can't do it? So surely by that, what's the chumrah? Well, my chumrah the shvua neder, is the chumrah of shvua, because we learned before shvua, even if it's something which is not tangible, I won't go to sleep. Okay, so valid shul. But if you make a neder that I won't sleep, it's not a neder because there's nothing to be challah. So that's the chumrah shul of a mitzvah of a neder. We also learn the chumrah neder of a shul. Ilay mishum b'chayla tol dav shem mamish that a shul is challah has a mamish neder nami chumrah. She can challah on mitzvah shus challah on mitzvah like a shus. So each one has a chumrah. What makes one stricter than another? When it comes to the punishment of shul, it says that lo yenak Hashem will not forgive you. And that we don't find by any other Rebbe. So therefore, or practically any other Rebbe. So therefore, Shvuah is stricter than that. The bottom line is explaining what it concludes. What Rabbi Yehuda is coming from a svara, and Shmuel is coming from a pasuk. According to Shmuel, the pasuk is coming to teach you that neder chala neder. According to Rabbi Yehuda, no, that's talking about when you have made two naziris at the same time. But with one nezer, chala nezer, your svara. Hayim umach.
This approach seems to be saying it's really not a difference between neder and shul. It's just not practical in the case of the shul.
Exactly. Which is
fitting with the way the mission says it.
Yep, you're right. But his whole approach is that we're approaching from a svara. Bigger svara, you can see the chiluk in nazar. Exactly what you said right now. And according to me, the pasuk when nazar is talking about something else. And therefore, you're right. There is no difference in nazar and shul. We are the mamish, concur. It's not the same thing. And when our Mishnah draws a contrast to shul, it's talking about teinim and teinim anovim. That's not just stamazek. Okay. See you. Have a